We're back for Monday Musings. We're here to discuss our journal card for today, which is accept. Accept. You know, when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about when we talk about accept and maybe acceptance or what that means, you know what popped into my head was the serenity prayer. Now, whether you believe in God, whether you are familiar with the serenity prayer, chances are you are. Whether you believe in it or not, we're going to start with that. The serenity prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And when we talk about accept, really that is the serenity prayer, is accepting. And this doesn't mean accepting everything. It means we're making a choice. Acceptance is not an agreement. It doesn't mean just because you agree with what happened, you may not agree with what happened, but you accept it and you know that it's useless to struggle against this. Things happen in our lives that we have no control over, that we need to accept. And that can be challenging, finding that acceptance. So it's not an agreement. It's not an agreement to agree with what happened. Acceptance is also not acquiescing to something that happened that isn't that's just and right. Maybe it's there are injustices in the world. There are times when things just happen. We're living in those times. And we don't, acceptance is not just acquiescing to, okay, well, it happened and I just have to accept it. Acceptance is not weakness. I know a lot of times we think, okay, well, you know, if I'm going to just accept something, that it is a weakness. It takes a lot of courage to be able to face reality, and especially when things are not in your favor. You know, that can be a tough one. And this goes back to acquiescing to something just happening. Sometimes things are not in your favor. It's not weakness to accept things as they are. Acceptance is not about giving up. It's not about giving up. It's about realizing your time and effort can be best applied some other place. So we're not accepting something and just saying, oh, that's just how it is, and moving on, being passive. It's about saying, all right, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to put my attention and my effort some other place. Acceptance is not about quitting. Quitting is when we can shift our focus and our attention, and we can shift it away from things that we have no control over. So a lot of things we don't have any control over. And so it's not quitting. It's not saying, all right, well, I don't have control, I'm just going to give up. It's about focusing your attention on what you do have control over and what you can influence. That's where acceptance is not quitting. Acceptance is also not resignation. Resignation may be, acceptance can be that first step to overcoming any misfortune. Not just saying, well, things happen. But it's not that resignation. It's about just accepting that things are. Acceptance is not about being passive. It's not about resigning yourself to a situation or a thought. A lot of the work that I do is with domestic violence victims, and a lot of times our victim mindset puts us into that space of just being passive, just accepting things as they are. This is not acceptance. So let's talk about what acceptance is. We've talked a little bit about what it's not. Acceptance is the willingness to experience ourselves and live as we are, to be fully authentic. Wow, what a powerful thing, to be fully authentic and to be able to accept. Acceptance means practicing and getting and respecting the process. We're all here to learn. We're all here on this journey together. And acceptance is knowing that it's a process. Acceptance is acknowledging your current situation. Where are we at right now? If you're familiar with the wise choices process, this is a great way of acknowledging your current situation. Where am I right now? What are my options and what am I willing to commit to? Acceptance is also remembering that everything can and usually is temporary. Most of the time. Most things are temporary. So why don't we accept things? Why don't we live with full acceptance? You know, we easily accept those positive emotions like joy and love and happiness because they feel good. They feel good. We love those things. We like to avoid situations and emotions that make us uncomfortable, like sadness or anger or traumatic experiences. We also, when we're avoiding acceptance, we want to avoid those feelings and those traits and those situations that make us uncomfortable. And we want to avoid those feelings and traits that we judge others for. Here's an interesting thing is we have a tendency to judge others for things like laziness or being too needy. So I would ask you, what are you accepting in your life right now that doesn't serve you? What are you accepting that doesn't serve you? When we're moving toward acceptance, oh, hi, Free Lynn. Yes. What doesn't serve you, living with full acceptance is a tough and important concept. It really is. And it is a process. That process starts with you. It starts with you. A lot of times we're overly critical of ourselves and we don't have that motivation to level up because we're too busy putting ourselves down. When we start with ourselves and we start with this acceptance, we can start shifting out of that mindset of being overly critical. Now, you can use these negative emotions to provide a catalyst for positive change. If you don't like something that's going on, how are you going to change it? Okay, I accept I don't like this. What are my options? Positively reframing those negative experiences is a form of non-acceptance. So I'm not saying you need to say, oh, okay, well, I had a negative experience. Maybe you had a death in the family. Maybe you had an unhealthy relationship. I don't want you to say, oh, well, I'm going to reframe it and just say it was okay. That's a way of non-acceptance. What we can do, though, is we can ditch the judgment and we can let it go. Now, this is easier said than done. Completely agree. You know, we grew up believing in judgment and evaluating ourselves negatively is how we make those improvements. We were taught that from a very early age, especially as Americans. We were taught to strive for bigger, better, faster, more. There's not a lot of acceptance in there. We tend to view situations as either good or bad, and then we react based on that assessment. So when we're ditching our judgment and we're letting it go, keep in mind there are things outside of your control that can affect you. There are things outside that can affect you. What you can do is you can shift into seeing things as they are without putting a judgment or emotion attached to it. Given, easier said than done. A great way to do this, remove that judgment and let go, is start with the small things. Maybe your coffee didn't turn out just perfect this morning. Maybe you couldn't find that other sock. Maybe if you're like me, sometimes you can't find your glasses because you can't see to find your glasses. Letting go of those small things and just accepting. Instead of struggling against those emotions, once we quit struggling against them, we can just stop being defined by them as well. So just accepting the emotions are there. Let go of those small things because ultimately they're all small things. As we're letting go and we're starting with ourselves, what if we find solutions instead of complaining? You know, I used to tell my college students when I was teaching that venting is a great way to get those emotions out and to make room for creating those solutions. So give yourself permission, have that 5-minute pity party, get those emotions out, and then once you have, then it's time to move on. We stop complaining and we say, okay, what can I do about this now? I'm not going to let my emotions overwhelm me and run my life. I'm going to find some acceptance here of what I can do, what I do have control over. If you think about it this way, as long as you don't do anything about it, you're stuck in that situation. Once you start doing things and you accept things as they are, you accept the emotions that go along with that, then you can shift into creating a new space for yourself. As I was putting this together this morning and reviewing what I was going to talk about today, one of my good friends posted a meme on Facebook today, and it gave me a great laugh. It's like the serenity prayer that I started with, but with a little twist. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change direction when I see them coming, and the wisdom to try not to smack some sense into them when I can't avoid them. Now, if you know me, you know that's my way too, is, all right, try and avoid it. If I can't change it, try and avoid it or change direction if I see that coming. And if I can't, hold on and try not to smack sense into them if it's coming at me. Today we've talked about acceptance. Our journal card today is accept. And I would ask you to take one small step forward. One small step toward your personal acceptance. How can you live a fuller life? By accepting those things you can't change and changing the things you can. Angela Davis said it best. She said, I no longer accept what I cannot change. I change what I cannot accept.